very dry.
This treacherous bumpy ride deep into the heart of Kitale in Trans Nzoi County mirrors the life of IEBC CEO Ezra Chiloba in 2017. It is here in these serene countryside surroundings that Chiloba has retreated to excel.
See the lands on the other side? Yeah. Those have a lot of land there.
And most importantly, reflect on the eventful turbulent year that has been.
Hey, it's too hot. It's now Mashambani. It's nice being home. A place I say that, you know, a place where people love you genuinely and there's good food. So it's really nice being at home in the countryside.
Words that reveal a sense of a man that feels he was unfairly targeted, even betrayed by those around him. As he scans his expansive farm and prepares for the next planting season, he hopes the new season will bring forth better returns, better tidings. The same could as well be said about his hope for the coming year. Reflecting back on the events of 2017 and the political storm that he found himself in, the IEBC CEO says the clouds of the storm had formed way before.
Na wewe Chiloba! Wewe Chiloba! Wewe Chiloba! Wewe Chiloba! Ukijaribu kuiba kura ya Raila, utakuwa umelaaniwa milele.
I've made several attempts to make critical changes, but all my motions have been defeated by a majority of the commissioners. Under such conditions, it's difficult to guarantee free, fair, and credible elections. Without critical changes in key secretariat staff, free, fair, and credible elections will surely be compromised. I therefore call on the staff who have been adversely mentioned to step aside to allow this project team to function without interference.
To me, going through that process wasn't as surprising, remembering that the commissioners who were led by Isaac Hassan were also pushed out of office. There was a lot of pressure. So I was just the second person after them. And for me, I would say it was a good learning period.
As the protests and the running battles mounted in the run-up to the general election, Chiloba concluded that he was being targeted as the fall guy, especially by the opposition alliance, NASA.
The backlash that followed the election wasn't anticipated.
If, as soon as the commission, the Isaac Hassan commission left, we built scenarios. And one of the scenarios that I built was the fact that one of the political groupings may not be happy with the outcome of the election. And at that particular point, they will look for a sacrificial lamb. I never doubted that sacrificial lamb was going to be real. And the reason is that I had been there. I had been the one now midwifing the transition and preparing for the election at that particular point. So there wasn't going to be any other person other than me. So it was already anticipated. Yeah, and maybe that's what gave me comfort. Nothing was surprising.
NASA supporters feel like you let them down. Actually, they will single-handedly pick you as the person who bungled the election.
Look, my role is not to present a position that, look, I'm here, so I have to support your party. That's not my job. My job is to put in place an implementation framework that allows the will of the people, of the Kenyan people, to be safeguarded, okay? And I think in August 8th, we did the best.
You didn't feel at any one point that this has become too much, maybe I need to exit?
At a personal level, of course, in terms of career, if there were reasons for me, valid reasons for me to leave office, it wasn't about about people protesting against me at all. It wasn't about that. There could have been other reasons away from the limelight, but not because I was caving into political pressure. No way. I wasn't going to allow that. And that's perhaps the reason we also held on a little longer. Yeah. But generally, of course, given the concerns that many people were raising during the electoral process, which is expected of anyone who is holding that office in our country, it does not matter, and I've said this before, it doesn't matter who is in that office unless we change the political culture in this country. Whoever holds that office will forever remain the subject of debate each and every election year.
While he concedes that the August 8th election management was not perfect, he insists the commission delivered a credible poll.
If the political class will say they want to blame Chiloba for the August 8th election, first of all, where is the evidence? What did Chiloba do or he did not do? There's a lot of misinformation that has been propagated out here. And I hope that as we get into 2018, that also will leave behind. But that does not mean that we had not made mistakes. We had made mistakes in one way or another. And those mistakes were expected. Not that there was fraud. There wasn't fraud in the election. But there were mistakes, which were, I will call, human error.
A declaration is hereby issued that the presidential election held on 8th August 2017 was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the applicable law, rendering the declared results invalid, null, and void.
The decision by the Supreme Court to annul the August 8th presidential election results seems to have given some weight to claims that the process was fatally flawed. Chiloba disagrees.
Putting everything into perspective, the nullification of the election, the subsequent chaos that followed, and the opposition saying that now they're going to swear themselves in. Anything you would have done differently?
In elections that are technologically supported, when you get it 100% clean, then there's something wrong. When it's too perfect, think twice. So the thinking of the Supreme Court in this time around is like, okay, it ought to have been 100% perfect, but when it's too perfect, think twice.
After the Supreme Court decision, the Commission was riddled with disagreements on how to manage the repeat elections. Leaked memos painted the picture of a divided commission, with the chair Wafula Chebukati appearing to lay blame squarely on the secretariat that is headed by Chiloba.
For quite a long time, he painted a portrait of a commission that is actually reading apart.
I think the division within the commission was largely about competing visions. Where do we go from here? Especially after the nullification of the presidential election. Where do we go from here? That was the greatest challenge, that we looked very divided at the point.
Without critical changes in key secretariat staff, free, fair, and credible elections will surely be compromised. I therefore call on the staff who have been adversely mentioned to step aside to allow this project team to function without interference.
If you've got a problem and you know you're the one responsible, step back, reflect, and provide the way forward in a very sober way. No emotions, because eventually if you let emotions take the better part of you, you carry it away, you might end up making very many wrong decisions.
But matters appeared to have gone south when Vocal Commissioner Roslyn Akombe abruptly quit and fled the country. Akombe claimed the commission wasn't ready to conduct a credible poll on October.
We had our own internal challenges. Akombe leaving at the critical moment, she had her own views about how she thought elections were going to be managed. Most of us, the majority of us, disagreed with those views, and of course, given that we were still committed to the 26th October election, we still delivered on that mandate. Even with the resignation of Akombe, I think that was a wake-up call also for the rest of the commissioners. And they realized that if we don't pull together, we actually just about to fail in ensuring that we deliver elections on the 26th. So her exit somehow motivated the rest of the team to really stick together and be able to deliver the October 26th election.
With the opposition gravitating around the same area to force for the exit of Chiloba, the CEO finally took leave from office 2 weeks to the repeat elections. NASA nonetheless boycotted the elections, claiming Chiloba had fixed the system to manipulate the process.
I think what NASA ought to have done was to participate in the election. They had no reason at all not to participate in that election, in as far as I'm concerned. You remember the reducible minimums. There were claims that we had not addressed the reducible minimums. When we prepared a checklist, we shared with them. No one came back to us and said, look, we don't like what you've presented to us.
Given the political intensity that was there, how would you describe your relationship as the CEO of IEBC with the political players, but to be more quite specific, that is the NASA leader Raila Odinga?
So I would say at a personal level, I think he's a very reasonable person. And that's why I say that, people might be surprised that if I say that once in a while we speak with Raila Odinga, they don't believe it, but it's true that we speak on things of national importance. But I think the nature of politics in our country is that the more control you have over certain processes, the more you gain the confidence that you think you're going to succeed. And I think that's where the problem is.
A staunch Adventist, 2017 got Chiloba's faith tested to the limit. Not only was he judged by the court of public opinion, but also in church, forcing him to minimize his presence there.
I got a little bit different perspective in terms of what faith is. It's really beyond this going to church or studying the Bible. It's not the doing, it's the relationship that you have with God.
It was a battle for his life both in the public domain but also spiritually. The sanctuary for solace and uplifting had turned hostile.
I saw the church, as we know it, very divided along political lines. People in difficulties will seek peace in church, because in church we know that we're brothers, sisters, you're brother's keeper. But I saw the politics that we went through dividing us right in the middle. And that taught me that there's something that goes beyond, that must go beyond religion, and start appreciating faith slightly differently. That you going to church on Sunday or Saturday or Friday if you're Muslim does not make you a Christian. What makes you a Christian is that core relationship that you have with your God.
The brutal murder of IEBC ICT manager Chris Musando would also mark one of Chiloba's lowest moments at the commission.
I know that the investigations have been going on. It's really in the interest of the country that that issue is brought to closure by getting the report of the investigation and ensuring that at least we see justice being done in the new year. It's unfortunate that his death was also politicized. Many people were very insensitive about him. Many people drew conclusions even when the investigation was still ongoing. So we just hope that in due course that issue will be settled so that Chris, his family, the Commission and the country at large can say, yeah, we now have justice in as far as the death of Chris was concerned.
Do you have any regrets from whatever you did when running the elections?
In running the election generally, I would say no regrets at all. in August say that I think we did the best we could, a good election, except that it went to the Supreme Court and it was nullified. If we have another election next year, we'll still be in the same situation unless we change our political system, our political culture. We need to move away from focusing on institutions in a way that, we downgrade the significance of having independent institutions, and we promote, I would say, our ethnicity as a form of political negotiation, or our individual charisma as a form of, as capital for political negotiations. We move away from that and we say we are going to invest in our institution. They are not perfect. They will not be perfect today. They will not be perfect tomorrow, but it's a continuous process.
Sam Ogina for Events 2017.